It's been a bit more than 1 year in for TOF, so I wanted to open a discussion regarding the changes in design and what we could expect for the future. I did write a post with some of these ideas, but here's the video version with some more hashed out thoughts. Note that this will be a largely unedited read, so feel free to tab out and just listen as I roll some random, maybe relevant footage in the background. First, let's start out with the weapons. At the start of the game, weapons had mostly only on-field effects, with only a couple weapons that could do off-field DPS or provide buffs for others. So what was it that made it worth swapping between weapons? Discharges. In 1.0, weapon discharges were powerful compared to standard DPS combos, so swapping between weapons and using discharges was a good damage increase. Nowadays, discharges are a DPS loss compared to most combos, and are cancelled in meta rotations to maximize DPS, unless said discharge provides a buff for the team. Furthermore, weapons would have options to consume endurance or dodges for higher DPS, with often greater utility, giving incentive to split your field time between weapons to optimize endurance and dodge usage. Meanwhile, nowadays endurance might as well not even exist, as weapons that consume endurance use a trivial amount. Finally, Shatter was a huge part of the early TOF gameplay. It was pretty much mandatory for every team member to run one dedicated Shatter weapon to prevent deadly boss specials from happening and for a DPS increase. Dedicated DPS weapons had little to no Shatter outside of Shiro. Nowadays, there is no such thing as a dedicated Shatter weapon anymore. DPS weapons offer enough Shatter that you don't even need to think about going out of your way to deal with shields. So, how have we gotten to this point? Let's start out with discharges. When Claudia was released, her limited matrices increased discharge damage by a ridiculous amount, even more so than the Sion version. This warped the global balance, leading to some really interesting metas with what I called the woodpecker crow, that involved spamming crow dives in a way that caused you to get an abnormally high amount of hits with Crow's already powerful discharge. Due to Alice also being on the horizon at this time for Xian, who synergized with discharge damage a lot, the damage of discharges had to be balanced towards the lower side, after which they've never really made a recovery. Can discharges be given a bit more love with modern characters? Definitely, but the existence of Claudia matrices make things tricky to balance, not only for the discharge damage, but also for the cooldown reduction. In fact, some modern characters like Huang specifically have forced anti-synergy with cooldown reduction effects, as it would throw off the balance. Remember the Fenrir Saki comp? That abused Saki's A1 reset with Fenrir to constantly spam Fenrir's A1 slashes, and was one of the strongest low investment comps for a very long time, and was even competitive with the more invested comps. It's because of comps like that modern effects and matrices are much more simple than they once were. Unique matrix effects such as dodge refunds and on-dodge damage and cooldown reduction have been moved away from, and now every matrix is just increases damage, works in the offhand. That might as well have no condition because they'll always be active in the proper teams. However, the simplification of effects has led to balancing being more rigid and controlled than ever. In the future, it looks like we're staying on this fairly generic route of characters, with some dedicated main DPS such as Huang, dedicated off-field supports such as Fei Se, and some flexible characters like Zeke who could work in both. This is also probably due to having more dual element characters on the horizon as well. Dual elements give players more options for teams, as well as letting people who were previously mono element to have more viable teams for content such as sequential, which can be a good thing. If the characters were more complex, it might lead to unintended interactions between characters that could bend the balance. Now, hear me out. It's not like these characters all play exactly the same within the same role. For example, use spam click for Zeke DPS, with optional dodges for more healing. For Liu Hua, you do auto hold dodge. For Mimi, you just hold attack with an optional dodge for grouping. Yuan has the most unique gameplay of them all, with a skill damage focused DPS that has to manage stack usage with relic uptime to optimize damage. Though, I will say, her gameplay can feel a bit clunky because she's pretty much a sitting duck when doing her combo. I think with the current setup, they did an okay job of making characters the same but different, but they could do better. It's a bit of a shame that several characters with beautiful designs only get to see 1 second of build time per rotation. Imagine being the person who designed the effects and animations for Facel's basic attacks, only for them to be pretty much never used or seen by anyone. The gameplay of units nowadays are streamlined to a point where they're all kind of homogenized within certain roles, which helps make them easier to play, for better or for worse, while making performance more consistent and thus easier to balance. While TOF has come a long way since 1.0, I can't help but to look back at these abandoned gameplay mechanics. Some parts of my soul dies when I use Huang hold attack for over 20 seconds without paying any attention to what the boss is doing. And did I just really call her Huang? I called her Huang, and then I called her Mimi, and then okay. Anyways, what do you think of these? What do you think of the current state of things? Feel free to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.